What if I told you that the money in your pocket could potentially lose its value over time? This is not some dystopian scenario, but rather the inevitable effect of inflation. Inflation is like the tide, it's constant and unyielding. Over time, it chips away at the value of your money, making each dollar, each euro, each yen you hold worth a little less than the day before. This is the harsh reality of inflation, a silent thief that robs the purchasing power of your hard-earned money. To understand the future effects of inflation, we first need to examine its cause and effect. Inflation at its core often arises from two main factors: demand pull and cost push. The former occurs when demand for goods and services exceeds their supply, leading to a price hike. The latter, on the other hand, happens when the cost to produce goods or services increases, causing companies to raise prices to maintain profitability. Upon its onset, inflation impacts the economy in several ways. For one, it reduces purchasing power. This simply means that the same amount of money buys fewer goods and services, leading to an increased cost of living. It's like trying to run up a down escalator. The faster inflation increases, the quicker the escalator moves, making it harder to reach the top. Moreover, inflation can lead to increased production costs. As prices rise, businesses may find it more expensive to produce goods or offer services. This can result in higher prices for consumers, further fueling the inflation cycle. Inflation doesn't just affect individuals, but businesses as well. It can increase their costs, reduce their profits, and create uncertainty about future prices. This can lead to reduced investment and slower economic growth. As we can see, inflation has a significant impact on both individuals and businesses. Inflation doesn't just affect us on a personal or national level. It has global repercussions as well. Let's consider international trade and exchange rates. When inflation rates differ across countries, it can distort trade by making exports from high-inflation countries less competitive. This can lead to trade imbalances, affecting the economic health of nations. Next, consider interest rates. Inflation can influence these rates, which are a crucial tool for central banks to manage economic growth. High inflation can lead to higher interest rates, which in turn can slow down investment and economic growth. And then there's the issue of global economic volatility. Inflation can contribute to this volatility by creating uncertainty in the market. Investors may be less willing to put their money into countries with high inflation, leading to less investment and slower economic growth. Inflation, thus, is not just a local concern, but a global economic phenomenon. In extreme cases, unchecked inflation can lead to catastrophic consequences. The specter of hyperinflation looms large when economies lose control of their inflation rates. This is not a theoretical fear, but a grim reality that has befallen nations in the past. Take Zimbabwe, for instance, where rampant inflation in the late 2000s led to an economic collapse. The nation's currency became practically worthless, severely impacting the quality of life for its citizens. The same story unfolded in Venezuela more recently, where hyperinflation has wreaked havoc on the economy, causing a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. Furthermore, as these national economies crumble, the ripple effects are felt worldwide. International trade suffers, exchange rates fluctuate wildly, and global economic volatility spikes. These chain reactions can lead to a rise in interest rates, further exacerbating the situation. Such cases serve as a stark reminder of the devastating power of uncontrolled inflation. So the question remains, how can nations effectively manage inflation to prevent such economic disasters? Also, what does the future hold in the face of inflation? As we've discovered, the future of inflation could mean a reduction in purchasing power. This means money in our pockets may not go as far as it once did, affecting everything from grocery shopping to home buying. Inflation can also influence international trade and exchange rates, which could create global economic volatility. Countries with high inflation may find their goods become less competitive, leading to weaker trade relationships and potential economic instability. Interest rates, too, can be impacted by inflation. Higher inflation often leads to higher interest rates, which can affect everything from mortgage rates to the cost of borrowing for businesses. In extreme cases, inflation could even lead to nations collapsing, as hyperinflation erodes economic stability and trust in a country's currency. But don't despair. Understanding these potential outcomes allows us to plan and strategize. By keeping a close eye on economic trends, individuals and governments can take steps to safeguard against the adverse effects of inflation. Inflation is a complex and multifaceted issue, but understanding it is the first step toward mitigating its future effects.